I do want to talk more about the storm and the impacts. Cory Mottice is the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Corpus Christi, Texas, and he does join us now live to talk more about all of this. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So first off, just break down the latest information, the latest stats on Harold and what we can expect here.
So yeah, it made landfall this morning as a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm. It's moved inland a little ways already. It's very quick moving, about 20 miles an hour to the west. So it has now become a tropical depression. It's going to continue moving west, but the rainfall at this point is what we're most concerned about. So right here in Corpus Christi, we've gotten upwards of 5 inches of rain in some locations already. We're seeing some flooding out there and several flash flood warnings, and that heavy rain is going to continue to spread inland through the rest of this afternoon and this evening.
I want to talk a little bit about the Gulf there. What role do the water temperatures play in Harold's status as a tropical storm, and were there concerns that it would be warm enough that this could potentially be a hurricane?
Yeah, so as it was moving west, it was in our favor that it was moving so fast, because with the Gulf being as warm as it is, and the overall environment was pretty favorable for some strengthening, but we were pretty confident there wasn't going to be any real rapid strengthening with this into the hurricane strength, just because of how fast it was moving to the west, around 20 miles an hour or so. So time was the limiting factor with this. By the time it actually started ramping up, and it was intensifying right up through landfall. So it intensified at the last minute right before landfall, up to a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm. And we did have some gusts, likely at close to 70 miles an hour in several areas.
So how long are we going to see Harold stick around? I imagine the storm is going to die out fairly quickly at this point.
It is. It's booking it. It's going to be out of South Texas by tonight. It's going to be into Mexico, and they're going to be getting heavy rains there in parts of Mexico with it. And within a couple of days, it'll be out of the area completely.
What's been the biggest threat with this? We talked about it a bit earlier, but for the most part, it's rain. Is wind a concern?
There's been a little bit of wind damage that we've seen, mostly right along the immediate coast. We've seen a few tree branches down inland in Corpus Christi, a few fences that it may have been knocked down by some stronger wind gusts. But for the most part, the flooding is certainly the biggest concern with this storm, especially with some areas likely getting up close to 7 inches or more of rainfall by the time it's all said and done.
And so I'm over in Florida. We get quite a few tropical storms and hurricanes that come through here. A lot of people will hear it's just a tropical storm is what they say. It's not a hurricane. It's not a big deal. What do you say to things like that?
You got to be prepared. In this case, flooding was our primary concern, so it's important just that you're always listening to your local officials, whatever it might be. If it's road closures, don't drive around the road closed signs. They're closed for a reason. Turn around, don't drown. It's not as significant as a hurricane when it comes to the wind, but tropical storms can still have significant impacts, especially when it comes to the flooding or potential storm surge.
And that's what I was going to say, is it sounds like a lot of what we hear constantly is people are concerned about wind. They think hurricane, tropical storm, they think wind. They don't think about the flooding potential. And it sounds like, unfortunately, a lot of the people who get injured, get swept away, or even pass away are due to those high waters.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, most of the fatalities that we see come from flooding, and a lot of it's from freshwater flooding, meaning just the heavy rain that falls over land producing flash flooding. And then you have the storm surge threat. With this particular storm, it was only about 3 feet or so, but that still was enough to get up to the dunes and likely cause some erosion of some of the dunes along the area beaches and put some of the roads in the low-lying areas underwater.
And I believe we're getting fairly close, if we're not already there, to the height of hurricane season, especially in the Atlantic. So is it likely we're going to see more of this development?
Yeah, as we head into late August and through basically mid-September, that's when the Gulf, especially here, that's our peak season, and the Atlantic as a whole. So there's certainly the next couple of weeks, we got to be keeping a close eye on it. It's getting pretty active out there right now. We have quite a few systems going on, all the way stretching from Harold here all the way off the coast of Africa. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that over the next few weeks.
Is it usual, is it unusual to see that many named storms that are out there at once? I know that many of them are not posing a threat to land necessarily, but is it normal to see that many of them at the same time?
It's not unusual. We've certainly had plenty of seasons with quite a few named hurricanes out there simultaneously. It just kind of happened all at once here pretty rapidly in the Atlantic Basin. It kind of a relatively quiet start, it seemed like, just because nothing was making landfall or impacting land across the U.S. until Harold here. So, yeah, like you said, most of the ones that are out there are going to be out to sea and not affecting land too significantly, but that could change pretty quickly as we head into the peak of hurricane season.
All right, Cory, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. I know you have a lot going on there. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Just that hopefully, there's a lot of new people that have moved on to into the coastal regions that may not have ever experienced tropical weather before. So use this as a learning experience. If anything, make sure you have your plan in place for yourself and your family and evacuation routes that you might take. Because it's not a matter of if, just a matter of when we'll actually get a more significant storm to hit the area, and we'll have to be prepared for it.
All right. Thank you again for joining us here and providing that breakdown.
No problem. Thank you.